It's hard to believe that the 2023 race season is over. At least it is for me. If you guys have some races coming up, let's hear about it in the comment section below. I'd love to read about what you guys got going on, whether you're going to be running, maybe a holiday 5K or half marathon, whatever the case might be. I'd love to hear about that in the comment section below. So let us know what you're up to. It's hard to believe that Christmas is just 12 days away. Gosh, the time just flies by. And every year it seems to go by a little bit faster. And so I'm starting to think about the 2024 race season and when I'm going to be starting my next 16-week training block. But before I get there, I thought it'd be fun just to kind of take a look back at my last training session, because if you follow me on the channel, you know that it really did not go according to plan. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I moved from running an intermediate training plan to an advanced training plan, both of which are designed by Gramin. I think they're both really solid plans. And the reason I did that is I have run 5 marathons in the last 18 months, which for me was a little bit ambitious. I'll grant you that. But I had a lot of fun doing it. And of those 5 marathons, 3 of them were world major marathons, all 3 here that are in the U.S. So that included Boston, Chicago, followed up by the New York Marathon. And 4 out of those 5 marathons, I've run Boston qualifying time. So I've had a lot of success with Gramin. And the first 3 marathons that I did using the Gramin Marathon Training program, and I don't work for Gramin. I don't get anything if you guys decide to go that way. They're absolutely free plans to use, and I'll be talking a lot more about my next one in an upcoming video. But I've had a lot of success with them, and I thought, after running my first 3 using the intermediate plan, maybe it was time to up my game a little, and I went to an advanced training plan. And it was designed at 16 weeks, as the intermediate was. And the main reason why I thought I might try moving from intermediate to advanced is prior to that, I had a lot of issues with shin splints. So, injury is what has held me back from reaching my full potential as a runner and maybe achieving, my next best pace. And I got the shin splint issue worked out. I went through a program with Kinetic Health, and they really helped me with some strengthening and mobility exercises, and they analyzed my running form and helped me make some tweaks there. And so I hadn't had any kind of issues with shin splints since I did that. And so I thought, you know what? If that's what's been holding me back from taking it to the next level, and I got that solved, why not? Why not take it to the advanced level? Well, I was probably overestimating my ability to recover. And, the older I get, the longer it takes for me to recover from just general workouts. And I'm not talking about injury now. I'm just talking about putting in a hard effort, after, a long run or a speed session or something along those lines. It just takes longer for me to recover. And not having those rest days, and when I moved to the advanced plan, I had very, very few rest days where my body could truly recover from those hard workouts and soak it all in and get ready for the next one. And because of that, I ran into some issues. So, but let me talk about some of the differences between moving from the intermediate plan, which I had some good success with for sure, to the advanced plan. Now, with the intermediate plan, I had set aside 5 days a week to work out. And I jotted some notes down, so I'm going to be kind of referring back to my paper here. And for that, I might have to put my glasses back on, because the older I get, the harder it is for me to see close up. Okay, so glasses on. With the intermediate plan, in total for 16 weeks, I had 72 workouts that I ran. And of those, they're broken down really into 4 different categories. Easy, speed work, the long workouts, or long runs, and then recovery days. And both plans basically follow that same format. So easy run, speed workout, long run, recovery run. So with the easy on intermediate plan, I had 16 easy runs. So that's about 22% of the time. Speed work was 30, which is about 42%. I know that's higher than what you might hear from other on other plans. Oftentimes they follow like an 80-20 rule, right? So 80% of the time you're running slower speeds. That would be your easy, your long run, your recovery runs, and then 20% of the time doing speed work. But here they had it doing 42%. Long run, 16, so that's 22%, one a week. And then a recovery run was just 10, so 14%. And that makes up the 72 workouts. Now, I moved from that to going to the advanced plan. And now with advanced, with easy runs, they actually went down to 13. So that was about 11% of the time. And then the speed workouts went up to 37. So it added in one speed session about every 2 weeks from the intermediate plan. Long run stayed the same, obviously one per week, and that made up about 14% of the time. And then recovery runs, now here's the biggest difference of all, and that went from 10 recovery runs in the intermediate plan to 49 in the advanced plan. So if I look at the breakdown of that, for the advanced plan, the easy run was 11% of the time. Speed work was 32%. Long runs, 14%, and then the recovery run was 43% of the time, for a total of 115 different workouts. Well, out of a 16-week plan, you have 112 days to prepare. And I ran 115 different workouts. And so there was really just not enough time for me to recover. And I found that out. I found it out the hard way. So after the first 5 weeks, so it started on June 19th. That was my first day of the 16 weeks as I was preparing for the Chicago Marathon, because that was the first one on my list of marathons to do for this plan. And the Chicago Marathon was on October the 8th, if I recall. So from June 19th to July 23rd, things were going pretty well. And I ran 278 miles, and I felt pretty good, except on that July 23rd, that was a long run, and some of the issues that I started to have a little bit along the way, some pain in my hip, some pain in the back of my thigh primarily. Those were the two areas that were of most concern to me at that time. My ankle was doing okay. My ankle was fine, because if you follow me on the channel, you know that Boston, I ran into a little bit of trouble just about a week before the Boston Marathon, where I had some tendonitis that flared up because I ran in the original version of the Alpha Flies. I popped one of the air units in the front of my right shoe. And by the time I finished that run, I ended up with tendonitis in my ankle. And that's how I had to run the Boston Marathon, and that was a little bit painful. So if you guys can check that out, if you haven't seen it already. But we got through. We made it through. But at this time, my ankle was doing okay. But I was definitely having some hip pain and definitely having some pain in the back of my thigh. Both kind of the abductor and, having some pain in my thigh. And we'll just leave it at that. So I decided to go ahead and move to my mountain bike. And I converted basically all of the different training programs, or all of the different training or workouts that were scheduled for me, to doing them on my bike. And so from July 24th right up through September 24th, I rode my mountain bike. And I rode 1,086 miles on that bike. So I'll tell you, yes, I was able to pretty much maintain my fitness riding my mountain bike rather than running, but I didn't really make any gains. And I did lose a little bit of fitness when it came to running with my leg strength, I think, anyway, because riding my mountain bike did a pretty good job of allowing me to be able to continue to train, but I lacked that pounding of the pavement, I guess, that you get when you're actually running. So there's still a difference between the two, that's for sure, and it was the best that I could do at the time. So that's what I did. I did basically 11 weeks on my mountain bike. And then from September 11th, so I had some issues. I got them checked out by my physician, had an MRI, found out I've got bursitis in my hip, and of course some abductor or an adductor pain, still some pain in the back of my thigh. And now what had happened is my tendonitis in my ankle flared up when I was riding my mountain bike, because I was got up out of the saddle and I was doing a lot of speed work on my mountain bike and using it in a different fashion. I got an overuse injury by doing that. So it's kind of like darned if you do, darned if you don't kind of a thing. And so those are the three issues that I struggled with for the remaining part of that, for that work, from that training block. And I am still dealing with some of those issues too. And I'll bring you up to speed on that here in just a second. But 278 miles is what I ran, again, from July 19th to the 23rd. From the 24th, July 24th to September 24th, I rode 1,086 miles on my mountain bike. And then after I got checked out and cleared to run the Chicago Marathon, from September 11th through the October 4th, so there's a little bit of overlap where I was still riding my mountain bike, but I started to build in a little bit of miles running. I ran just 40 miles, so it wasn't a lot, but I did do a little bit of work in my running shoes toward the very latter part of that training block. And then if you count in the miles that I actually ran the marathon and so on, total miles for the entire training block from June 19th through October 8th was 348 miles that I ran. And then the rest was, again, on my mountain bike. So overall, I got it done. Sometimes that's all we can ask for. And then I stayed in what I would call taper mode from the Chicago Marathon through to the New York City Marathon. So I didn't do a whole lot in between there, other than trying to ride my mountain bike, trying to keep things loose, still doing my mobility exercises that I was doing, what I often have to put in air quotes, yoga kind of thing. And, it turned out okay. In both with Chicago and New York, my biggest concern was not just maybe re-injuring myself, or maybe not being able to complete it at all, because having that flare up during the marathon itself and having to get picked up by the golf cart that goes around sweeping people up, kind of a thing. So that didn't happen. I didn't set my fastest times in either one of those, but I had a good time for sure. And, I wasn't, I think when I was talking about Chicago and doing that wrap-up video, I think I mentioned that I ran it, pain-free. Well, that was kind of okay. So I'm gonna expand on that just a little bit. I wasn't in any more pain after running that marathon or during the marathon than I was prior to it, but I was still hurting some in my trouble areas that I mentioned already. And that same was true for New York. So it didn't make it any worse, but I wasn't any better either. And so I made the decision after completing the New York Marathon to lay out of my running shoes as long as possible before starting my next training block. With the exception, I did go out, I think, for a short run to kind of test the waters. And, I'm still having that hip issue, still having some pain, here and there. That I just decided not to push it. And the only other time that I run since then has been the turkey trot. So if you haven't checked out that video, I had a lot of fun doing that. Ended up taking second in the turkey trot in my age group. And I say that I'm pretty proud of that. That's fine. I had a good time. I ran it, as I've said, pain-free more or less. I wasn't in any more pain or any less pain after having completed it. So I had a good time with it. And it's a very competitive 5K race. The individual that won it, I think, came in at like 14 minutes and 30 some seconds, something like that. So it's a really competitive 5K. I came in over just a little over 20 minutes, I think. 20, well, you know what? It might have been closer to 21 minutes, 20 minutes and 40 some seconds, something like that. But good enough to take second in my age group. So again, I was pretty happy with that. And the biggest part of that was I got to run it with my family, got to run it with my kids. It was just a great time. It was just a great time. Love it. I look forward to that race every year. It's by far my favorite race of the year because it is a family event. So, okay, so if you're wondering on the marathon times, so Boston, I came in at 3 hours, 34 minutes, and 46 seconds, which is a Boston qualifying time for a man my age. And then with Chicago, and I just hit a button on my laptop, so I stop that for a second. Chicago, I came in at 3 hours, 33 minutes, and 57 seconds. So I actually did a little bit better in Chicago, even though I wasn't in as good a shape. When I went to Boston, I was in really good shape. My legs were strong, my cardio was strong, but my ankle was weak. And so I just wasn't able to set a PR in Boston like I had hoped to do. But still, I ran a pretty decent time. And in Chicago, I ran a little better time because things felt a little better. My ankle felt better, and my hip and my back of my thigh weren't hurting as bad. So, I was able to improve my time, but still not running, a personal best. In New York was just for fun. It was just for fun. My slowest marathon time to date, it was 3 hours, 40 minutes and 51 seconds. So 3:41:51 was my New York City marathon time. And there was a little part of me that was kind of sad and bummed out that I didn't run a Boston qualifying time in New York, because then I would have been 5 for 5. But, I had such a good time in New York. It was just fantastic. It's just a fantastic time. I highly recommend it. It's a tough course. Between those three world majors, obviously Chicago's the easiest. It's pretty flat. Boston, I would say, would be next in line. It's a net downhill, but Boston has its challenges. And, running downhill isn't always that much fun because you're pretty much, you're heavily loading your quads because you feel like you're braking the whole time, or at least a good part of the time. And you have Newton Hills that's coming up towards the end, which makes Boston Marathon a bit of a challenge too. But New York was by far the more difficult, I think, anyway, overall. And it wasn't just the bridges. I think there's 5 bridges in New York that we had to run over, but Central Park, when you get into Central Park, my legs were tired, and there's rolling hills in Central Park. So it's not like you finish that last bridge and it's all downhill from there, because it's not. And that, I think, surprised me the most in New York, but still so much fun. Oh my gosh, I'd go back and do that again in a heartbeat. Okay, so that's kind of just my summary of what happened in 2023 anyway, and the differences between that intermediate and advanced plan. And I won't be running that advanced plan, at least not like that again anytime soon, because I need more time to recover. So I'm going to be going back to the intermediate training plan and making some tweaks for that for Boston. I will start training for the Boston 2024 Marathon on December 26th. That's the first day that will kick off. And right now for 2024, I have 2 marathons currently scheduled. It'll be Boston and then Chicago. Those are the 2 that I've already signed up for and are in. I tried to get in to the international marathons. I didn't get into any of them. I didn't get into Tokyo, London, or Berlin. So hopefully, maybe for 2025, I'll figure out a way to move it international. Now, for next year, I may pick up a 3rd marathon. I don't know yet. I'm really looking at maybe the CIM, maybe go out to California and try that. I think there would be enough time in between Chicago, which will be early October, and then December, which would be, or early December, which would be the CIM. But we'll see. We'll see as that comes up. I need to think about that just a little bit more before I try to pull the trigger on that one. All right, so that's it for today's video. Thanks for making it to the end. I really enjoyed making it for you. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Run tall with them.